Hello, welcome to this first section. So, if you're joining us for the first time, this is um, our live section on Advanced Figma Masterclass. My name is Raymond. I'm a product designer and I'm running the Frames and Dave community platform. So, Frames and Daves is a community for designers and AI engineers or design engineers, however you want to call it, and our primary goal is to advance our skills as designers, as product builders, and we have outlined several events that will help you to become a better product designer, a better design engineer. And today we will be looking at the advanced Figma masterclass, and most especially we'll be looking at how to create reusable Figma components that you can plug into your design systems in code, and also understand the structures that you and things that you need to put in place before you create them, what you need to decide, how you need to make the decisions, and also how to actually build them, right? So we're going to start first of all by establishing some basic things. All right. So here I am on the current design system that I am building for my products, and we have a lot of components that is already in existence in this design system UI kit. However, I want to make an assumption that there is a need to create a new component, right, that will be used across the design system. But before we do that, let's look into some of the things that I want to consider while making that decision. So if you're new to components or you're new to Figma, you might ask yourself what exactly is a reusable component in Figma. So a component is uh, it is an asset within Figma that can be reused across um, different pages, different designs, different products across the entire project workspace. It can be used by you, it can be used by your team members, by anyone. And the goal is to create an asset that maintains some level of principles, consistency, aesthetics across all the features wherever it is used. And also, it is reusable because it has one source of truth, and any changes you make on that source of truth reflects on all the different variations of that single asset. That is why it is called a reusable component. So a quick example is some components for a messaging feature. Let's say you're building a chat application and you're creating some base components that will be used across the UI for the product. So you have all the different upload file icons here. You have upload message components with different types of variations, like where you have a file upload with the caption, then you have a file upload without captions, you have a file upload with the name of the person that created it, and so on and so forth. Now, when you also look at these other options here, you see these add message bubbles by the sender, by the recipient, by the sender with the name. This is most especially used if it's a group chat because you want to be able to know the person that sends this exact message. And you also have the reply bubbles where you have the message and the previous chat that was replied to, and also other options where the reply is a file, and also a reply where the message was sent by someone within a group chat, right? So you have all of these, and here's where you have image bubbles where you have multiple image upload variations, single image, two images, more than four images, right? And you also have those variations for group chats and also both the sender and the recipients. Now, what the good thing about this is that this becomes the source of truth for all the components that is needed to create a chat UI. And all you have to do is to draw a new frame to create your chat UI, and you start plugging all of this into the UI, right? Your team members can also use this to create other charts. Let's say, for example, you're building a product that has comments, right? You have comments. So in Figma, if you notice here, we have comments, right? So you see, I can write comment here. You see that? Now, this is a chat UI, and once you send your comments, you'll be able to see it. The person that you're chatting with will see the comments, they can reply to you. Now you can use this components to create that comment UI. And maybe within your organization, someone else somewhere is working on a customer conversation chat, right? They can still use the same components to create a chat UI, because there's going to be a sender and a recipient. They're going to be replies to messages. They're going to be image bubbles. Then it's going to be image upload, and so on and so forth. And someone else also is building a group chat feature within the same application. They're going to still reuse the same components to create the group chat UI, right? Now, each of these products or features handled by different team members require different properties, right? A group chat requires that the sender name be visible, so you can differentiate between sender A and sender B and sender C, right? Or however, when you're within a direct message chat, or you may not require the name of the sender because you're just two persons, right? And also, it's obviously right to have like some previews when you're sending a message. But sometimes when you're sending a message, like this example we have here, there may not be a need to show a caption. So which means that the component should be able to give you the ability to either show a caption when you're uploading the file, or not show a caption when you're uploading the file, right? And the same principles applies to images. Sometimes you can send a message, or let's say for instance you send a message to someone and you don't want to show a caption, right? And the properties of the component should allow you to be able to set to add a caption and or not add a caption, right? So all of these things is what makes up a component or a reusable component within Figma, and that is the principles applies when you're implementing this in code. All right. So when should you create a reusable component? Just to reemphasize some of the points I made earlier, when you realize that a particular component is needed across different features, the next best step is to create a reusable component so that your team members can use it across different products, and you still maintain coherency and consistency across your UIs. Also, it speeds up workflows, right? So each designer responsible for the comments, for the chats, for the direct message, for the group chats, for customer service chats, they don't have to recreate the same components all over again, because it's possible that a direct message chat products can have multiple pages or duplicate pages with different variations of the UI. And if there is no component that controls all the chat components, that can cause a lot of inconsistency while the designer is trying to make adjustments to one screen, and then the other screen is already obsolete, right? But if you have a component that handles the properties of all the UI components for the charts, you can easily go back to the master and make adjustments, and it reflects on all the duplicate pages you have within the charts UI, right? Now, when you realize that, then just know it's the best time to create a component for that particular use case. And also, the next question now is, how do I define a component feature and properties, right? So starting with outlining where it is needed is the most important thing, right? So where would this component be used? So if you're creating a chart UI components, where will it be used? Your product, does it have comments? If it has comments, that means it's possible that more than one person will be able to comment there, right? You note down those properties. Now, Will your chat UI component, will it be used in a direct message? If it's going to be used in a direct message, then you know that there'll be a sender and a recipient. And also, anywhere it is going to be used, you need to outline those where it's going to be used. Then the next question is, all of these use cases, what are the basic need that will require them, that they will require of the component to enable them actually make use of the components. So once you understand those basic needs, outline them, then you can go on to actually build out the components. And of course, one good thing about components is that they are reusable, they are always expandable. And once you add a new feature or a new properties or a new variation of that component, it will reflect in all the previous versions where it has already been used, right? And that is the beauty. So how do we create a reusable component? All right, so let's start from our design system here. So we have some design system components here. We have the list components and all of these other components that is available here. But let's look at this option here. This is a chip. If you're not familiar with a chip, I will show you an example. Chip. All right, see. Let's go to Material UI. So Material UI is a design system library with multiple components, and they have a chip component. A chip most of the times is used to display options in a list, or depending on how the design system implements them. So here they say that chips are compact elements that represent an input, an attribute, or action, right? So that already tells you some of the properties it's going to have an action. So that means it's clickable, or it can be removed, it can be added, right? Or it could just be an attribute just to show some UI features within the page, right? It may not have any effects. Like in this case, this is a basic chip, right? And it doesn't have any action on it. You can't click on it. However, this other one here is clickable, because you see that there is a hover over it, which means that it can be clickable. Now, does this replace a button? No, most likely not, right? So, but the use case and the experience is very, very close, right? Once a chip is clickable, it sometimes behaves like a button, because obviously when you click on it, it can work. And this here, you also see that we have an action where it can be deleted. So you can click on the delete button to delete it, right? Now, all of these properties would depend on where you're going to use it, like I said earlier, how you're going to use it, right? Now, that is what a chip does. I have an example here that is very unconventional, with multiple properties that you will not see in the example I just showed you here. So the options we saw here is that we have a chip that has an action, right? You can delete it, or has an icon, right? It can be an outline, or it can be filled. It can be of different properties: the primary, the field, the secondary, the success, and all of that, right? Now, these are all the properties that will be defined in code and also in Figma, if you're using Figma as your design system tool, right? So, but in this case, you will notice we'll have one more thing here. We have this badge here, right? We have this badge here, and that's because in my use case, I need to be able to identify something. Obviously, I could decide to use a different component entirely for this purpose, right? But this is my design system, and I want to build it out the way it will fit my product, right? The way it will fit my use case. right? So I'm not just copying something from what someone else has done. Of course, we are building on the existing principles, but still we can extend it to our use case, right? Now, let me show you where I actually used it. So I'm building a product that is called Form AI. So it's an AI form platform where you can add a prompt, and the prompts automatically generates forms for you. And we have what is called workspace membership, and users can invite other members to join your workspace. And to do that, you have to invite someone. So we have this system where the user can enter multiple email addresses to invite other users. And as you can see, we are using the same chip here. So when the user enters an email and select the workspace role and click, and they want to, if they click on add email, which is to add a second email, the system automatically creates a chip here, right? And which they can delete. They can also see the role they have selected for this particular email, right? Which is admin. And it will be clickable because if they click on it, it automatically fill up this input again with the email and with the role. Maybe they decide to update it, right? Now we could actually use other components here like a list item, which is probably a good option, right? But the current list items that I have has not been extended to have additional properties like the chip. We only have one action on the right and the other part of the list item. So I preferred not to use it. So in this use case here, it works for me and it is reusable across the product. How is it reusable? Now, if I select this and come down to, let's say, this section here, uh, maybe I'm building out something else that will require a chip. Now I can decide to turn off some of the properties, like I don't want to show a badge, right? Okay, let me update it from the master component. I want to go to the defaults, right? So I want to use the outline. I don't want to show a badge. See that? I don't want to show an action. Oh, see that? Now I want to just make it hot content. I can also make this hot content. Now you see it looks more like a regular chip, right? So we can just say user or active user. Maybe you want to use the success. Now you see it is just a regular chip. Maybe I want to add an action to delete it, maybe because this chip will be used as a list of items in when you select different type of users, right? So I can easily delete either of them, right? Now you see all of the properties within that component is configurable. I can remove, I can add, I can delete anything I want. And did you notice that I didn't have to detach the components, like detaching it from the master is still part of the master component. If I right click on it and say go to main component, it will bring me back to my design system file here and select the exact variation that I'm using, right? So if I go back to the form AI, now I can actually decide, okay, I want to go back to the defaults. I want to change the text. So all the properties of the chip component is available on the property panel here. That is what a reusable component should look like, because it allows the user to use it in however they want within their design. So I can decide to add an avatar here. Oh, you see that? And the avatar also have different properties. I can use the smallest one. See that? I can also use just the fallback, which is the initial of the name of the user. So maybe Raymond is Raymond here, and we just have Raymond badge. Let's say, for instance, we are in the live section and we want to show all the people that are available in the live section. So we could just add all of them here. Uh, uh, Grateful, right? We have different users, and we can just change the initials, right? You see, everything is configurable. We didn't have to do anything. This is the same components as these components. You see that? But they serve different purposes. You see that? Now, the beauties of this is that even the icon itself, I can still change the property. Maybe I decide to use the smallest one. So you see here, I still need to make some adjustment to the property so that when I change the icon, the color should be consistent with the variants. But in this case, I can just come back here and change the color to success. And that solves my problem. Now, the button, the chip is still attached to the main component as well, right? Okay, so how do we build something like this? So let's destructure this. Let's destructure this. So we have a few things. Let's go back to our design system here, and let's a new file, new components. Okay, so what is the most basic thing here? The most basic thing here is a text. Yeah, it always starts with a simple text, right? So we could just call this, let's say we want to create what's components. So let's go back to here and see if we can find a very simple component that can help us understand the principles behind the features in component. So a badge, okay. So you see here we have a badge component, and if you notice there's an icon and there's also this indicator here. The indicator can have a text inside of it. It could be directly centered, right? It could just be a small icon without a text. You can actually decide to create a number. So we have a badge. So this is actually a badge. This rounded stuff here is a badge. So, and you see different variations of how it looks like. Now let's create a very simple version of this. So what do we need to make that happen? Let's outline our needs. So let's say we need an icon. We need a badge, and the badge has a text, right? Okay, so let's start here. Maybe we also let's say, okay, let me see if I can remove this. Yeah, this is truncated, that's why you see that. Okay, so let's say that we also need to have different states of it. What to have a success state. Why do we need a success state for a badge? Probably not, right? So okay, we want to have the option where we can show the indicator, only the indicator, but also indicator, let's call it counter, the one that has a number in it, right? So how do we start here? So the first thing we want to do is to bring in the components, the icon. But one thing we want to notice that because this is a badge, it depends on where it is used. So this is for email, right? It can also be used in a notification, right? So which means that we should be able to change the icon, right? So what we're going to do is to bring in a bell. Already I have my icons available within this UI kit. So I can bring in a bell. So you see the bell is an icon, is a component that already exists within my file, right? So that is number one. Then we also need a badge, right? So let's call this, we also need the indicator, that creates the badge, because the entire component itself is a badge, right? So let's say we have an indicator and we have one, okay? So we just show one. Then what we're going to do is that we are going to add an auto layout, make this an auto layout, and we're going to have a fixed width. So let's say 16 by 16, and we're going to have rounded full, right? So let's make it full because we want this to be completely rounded, right? Okay, so the next thing we want to do also, because it's an indicator, we need a background. So let's add a background to it. So let's say we want to use the green success, right? Or the red indicator, let's say destructive. So because we are using destructive, we are going to change to destructive foreground. You see that? Okay. Now we want to balance this very well. So if you notice the text is way one-sided. So let's remove this and see. Let's remove this and see. Okay, let's make this 24. Okay. Let's okay, so we can use an option that doesn't have a leading. So this currently has a leading. That's why a leading is the space on the top, on the bottom, on the bottom, I mean, of the text that gives space in between paragraphs, different lines of text. So we could just let's try something else. But this also has a leading. So what we can do is that let's detach this and remove. Let's just use Alt and C. Okay, it doesn't really make any difference, so we just leave it the way it was. All right, I still feel it's a lot is big, right? So what we can do, let's see, let's try it first. So you see, it's bigger than the icon, right? But we just want something that is very small. So what's the size of this icon? The size of this icon is 24 by 24, right? So want to make sure, hold on, want to make sure that the icons is larger, right? So we could reduce the size of this. Already we are using 12, which is this font size we have here, right? So let's see something here. What's the font size of this? So let's look at it. So we can inspect it by using the Chrome Dev tool, and here we look at it to see that this is 12. Yeah, funny enough, is the same size, but on Figma it looks a lot bigger. It looks a lot bigger on Figma, so sometimes that amazes me. Okay, so let's see. This is 12. This is 24. Okay, interesting. This is 12. This is 20. Yeah. So we are actually on within the same scope. So what we cannot do, let's just leave it this way for now. Then how do we make sure that we have what we need? So this is the first version here. Let's say that the second version is the one that doesn't have a text, right? So the one that doesn't have a text is a lot smaller. So let's use 16 by 16. You see that? So let's say that, okay, what options do we need also? Maybe that is all. We could actually just bring this down to 28 by 8, which makes more logical sense. Yeah, I'm coming back to making sure that it's properly aligned, right? So what we want to do now is to select this, put it in an auto layout. So you see that now it goes to the left, so we want to change it to the right. All right, there's no spacing in between them. So the same thing here, you can select the two of them, then hit this icon here to add auto layouts. Okay, now we have a problem. we want to have this icon on the top here. So what actually happens is that this is not supposed to be on the top here. So let's call this indicator. Let's call this indicator. So what we're going to do is that we're actually going to make the indicator an absolute layout. What that means is that it's going to exist outside the boundaries of its parent frame. So we could make this absolute. Now you see it is right on top of the parent frame. So what we're going to do, let's add a border here so you see what I mean, just for reference. So now you see that it is directly on top of the parent, right? So we can actually push it. If we make it align to the top and to the left, to the right, we're exactly at the top. So we can now use our arrow. Let's move it. Hold down your shift and go one. Maybe that is good, right? So we just moved it by 8 pixels, right? So maybe we can come back 1, 2. So without holding down the shift. Okay. So now we can now remove this border, obviously. This looks good. Did you see what I'm seeing? Oh, I added a drop shadow without knowing it. Okay, now the same principle here. Let's move this absolute layout. Right. Now let's move it to the top. Now you see it covers the entire so what we're going to do, we are going to move it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So let's move it 1, 2. You see that? Now we have our UI. So in theory, these two properties here should takes up this entire space. It's not just the size. This is not the size. The size will be this. So when you're using it in the UI, you want to always put it in a frame that will contain the entire height of both the parent and the indicator, right? So we can decide to push down the indicator a little bit down, right? Now we can now use these two as variants of a single component. So what we can do, we can select both of them, and then we can go to drop down, create components sets, not multiple component sets. Right now we have one component, so we can call it a badge. Is it a badge? Yeah, is it a badge? It's called badge here, right? Okay, so now we have two variants. So how do we define this? How do we name them to make sure that it's easy to understand? So one thing we want to do is we want to look at this one has a text, this has no text. So let's look at the design system and see the convention here that how they named theirs. So we have the option with containing text. Okay, then we just have the one that just shows the badge and not show the badge. Okay, so what we can do is we can say, okay, let's call this variant. Let's change this variant to, we can just use properties instead of variants, right? So probs means that if it is true, it will show. If it is false, it will not show, right? But a variance means a duplicate or a duplicate version or a second version of the original, right? So we will have the default version, we have other versions, right? So here we can use a prop actually. So we can say show text. Maybe we can come back to it later. So by default, we say true. We can use true or false, or we can use yes and no, the same thing. Then the other option will be no, right? Now, I always want to quickly start testing out how it looks like, so I can copy a variant of it and paste an instance of it and paste outside. So this is an instance of this badge component. So if I say go to main component, it selects this, right? Because this is the main component. Now I can select this. I can easily say yes or no. Okay, this should be a toggle. The reason why it's not working is because I used no and true. So they need to be consistent. So either you use no and true, or you use yes. Either you use no or yes, or you use true or false. So here I can use false, right? So now if I come back to this instance here, you see it's now a toggle, right? So I can turn it off and turn it on. Okay, now I also want to add one more property, and that property will be, I can do it in several ways, right? I want to have a property where the indicator is not there at all, right? So I can use a property that shows or hides the indicator, or I can add a variant. I usually want to reduce the number of variants inside of it, because the more variants you have in your Figma files, the larger the Figma files, right? So you want to always control the reduce the number of variants you have within a component while still having all the properties that is needed, right? So here I can actually say, okay, let's use a variant. So I will select both of them and I will click on this button, add variants. Did you see that? And now this variant, what will it be called? Let's go back to the component. So let's select the entire component. I'll add a new variant property here, and I will use the name um, okay, let's say type. We'll come back to the naming. Maybe we'll find a better naming convention there. So the first one is the default, and the default has indicator, right? Now if you select any of them, Figma will complain because all of them has the same all of them has the same default actually, right? But that's not what we want. Okay, the reason why it is not complete because it actually made other variants name for the new duplicate. So if we select if I select this one and turn it back to true, and select this and turn it back to false, you see that Figma is complaining that multiple variants has conflicting properties, right? That's because we have this that is false and default, and we also have this that is false and default. However, if we come back here and change this to okay, let's just use icon, and here we're not going to have the badges, so we turn it off, right? So you see that Figma is no longer complaining that we have multiple variants with different with the same properties. So what we can also do, we could just also align this just so it looks nice. Yeah, okay. Now here in the instance that we have, we can select show text. Oh, you see that now we have an issue here as well, which we will adjust in a minute. But here we can now say icon only, and you see there's no icon even if we turn this on. Okay, interesting. Now that is one thing that we want to also adjust. We actually don't need the two options here because they're literally the same thing, right? Either there is an indicator on the or there is no indicator, right? Okay, so okay, so yeah, now I know the right name to use for this. So this should be default this should be indicator. Or let's say okay, we can actually just use the props. So show indicator. So here I can use yes, and here I can use no, right? So I can actually delete one of these because I don't need the two of them. This is more than enough already. So here I can select yes, no. Okay, so what we want to do here is that I want to adjust this to, I want to adjust this one to no and this to yes. So when I select this, it should be yes, not false, right? So this should be true, then this should be false. Okay, it's no longer there, so I say false. Yeah, so now if I select this, I can just say it's not show true, so false, right? Okay, now then I can show indicator or not. All right, yeah, there's this changes where there's this weird movements going on somewhere there. Interesting. Maybe I'll find out why. Okay, you see the size is not the same, right? So here we have 24 by 24, but here we have 24 by 26. Interesting. So I can make this 24. Yeah, this is the right size. So now I think that should solve it. So let me see this one also. So this should solve it. So if I use on, yeah, off, on, off. Okay. So if let's assume we are ready to export our, we are ready to use our components, because now we just created it, we want to be able to use it. But one thing is missing though. What if the text is more than one? How do we change it? So now if I say show text or show text here, show indicator, and now I'm not able to change the properties of the text. You see that? Which is not what I want. I want to be able to change the properties of the text. Right? I want to be able to add either 2 or 3 or 5. So what I want to do, I want to, make this text property to be available in the instances. So I can select the text itself, right? And I can, when I select the text, I will see this option here, and if you hover over it, you see add or apply variable property. So I can select on it, and I'll click on this plus. Then you say text. I'll just use the word value. So the default will be 1. Then I'll create. Now, if I select this, you see I can change the value to 5. All right. Okay. Now, the other thing is, what if we want to use this indicator for a messaging indicator instead of a notification? Okay, now there's no way to change the icon because there's no property here. But remember, the icon itself is a variant of another property, right? So it's possible for us to extract it. So let's see if we can do that. So if we select this, we can go to properties, add, and oh, there's no way to bring in the nested instance of the other components. So what do we do? Okay, let's find a way to resolve that. Because we need to be able to access the icon button. So let's go to the icon itself. Here we have the icon itself. So let's see if we can find a solution to our problem. Okay, we just have this vector here. Okay. Interesting. there should be a way. So it's not there. Okay, well, there should be a way to expose the icon, and I think the reason why we're not able to do it the way I want to do it is that the icon, if you go to the icon itself the icon itself is not a component, it's just a vector, right? So that's why we cannot nest it into a different component. So what we can do is actually very simple, is to create an instance swap. So what we can do, let's select the icon here, and here if you look at, you see this icon that says create instance swap property, and we can call it icons slots, and by default we're going to have the bell icon. So create Ray. All right, now you might think you are off the waters. Here we can now change the slots, right? So let's message Ray. But let's see if we hide the text. Change back to the bell. That's because we have not activated the slots on these other ones. So we select this as well, click on this. Instead of creating a new one, you just click on icon slots. The same thing goes here. Make sure you're selecting the icon itself, then click slots. Yes, so now you see it has changed. You see that? So here, even if we turn on the text, we still have it. And it's, if we use mail, yeah, show text now. So you see we're having a little bit issue here, that when it is a different component, that a different icon that has different shape, you see our icon indicator is not properly aligned. So what that means is that we actually need to move it a little bit farther away from the indicator itself. All right, so let's try this one. So we need to move it a little bit. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. So you might want to play around with different icons to see the effect, but most likely you're not going to use every icon here, so it's most likely going to be either a bell, a mail, or a chat. So once that is okay for all the options you're going to use it, then you are good to go. You have a working component that is reusable, right? Okay, let's see. Message. Yeah. Okay, now you see everything is accessible from the properties, and that is what it looks like to reuse a component. Maybe the next best step would be to decide, do you need some kind of color variations or not? But most likely an indicator like this, a badge like this, don't need different color for different color variant, like destructive or whatever. All you might just need to do is to change the base color. Let's say you want to use the primary color for some reason, and you're good to go. All right, so I hope this was very helpful, and you'll be able to now create your first reusable component. And I hope to connect with you again next time this week to discuss more about design systems. See you.